Wow! Thank you to everyone who commented and shared any bit of advice, good or bad. There isn't one thing on here I've not already had running through my head. I tell myself and those around me just about everything you've all commented, especially those putting the emphasis on me being pathetic and stupid. Trust me, y'all. I know I feel it too. I'm really sorry to those who felt this was rage bait. Typing it didn't come across nearly as unrealistic as reading it. And after reading it over and over and over, I recognized it. Unfortunately, this is my reality. I'm also sorry for coming across rude for further informing those insulting my intelligence. If there's one thing a professional counselor has taught me, vulnerability doesn't equate to stupidity. I understand I posted this on the internet, but man, I was not expecting this big of a blow-up. I noticed someone mentioned I posted this in 12 different subs, but I only posted this in relationship advice, and it seems to have been shared around by others. So while yes, I wanted feedback, I truly can't believe I got this much back. And again, I really appreciate all of those who have taken the time and energy to share their advice and opinions. I have received over 100 messages on top of these comments, so it's hard to get back to everyone. I apologize. Simply put, it was over before I made this post. I don't actually think I sabotaged my marriage. This post wasn't intended to make so many people mad. I wasn't looking for any sort of attention, hence why I'm on an anonymous site. This is for him, the man who says I ruined the marriage. I guess not only do I think it wasn't purely me, but over 400 of you have suggested the same. By the way, therapy is an amazing source for those who can access it, and I am fortunate enough to, but you'll have to stop thinking that is an option for everyone and the only way to heal. Thank you again for your time. My husband and I have been struggling for almost the entirety of our marriage. I'll be the first here to admit that our age does play a role in that. Today, he accidentally sent me a message about myself that was meant for his friend. She's mad at me because I tried to have intimacy with her when she was ovulating LMAO. I know this may sound dramatic, but I think I felt my heart break a little when I read that. I felt betrayed, disrespected, humiliated, and I can't help but to feel he wants his friends to think I'm crazy and that he's being emotionally tortured. He told me last year around this time that none of his friends liked me, which I wasn't really nice in response to. I think the whole group, including my husband, had a hard time adjusting to him being married and boundaries being put in place. For example, my cool wife card was revoked when I said, if his friends have nothing better to talk about other than banging chicks while around me, they're all in relationships, marriages, then they have no reason to be in my home. One of the wives won't even let the guys swear, but I'm supposed to listen to them brag about all the hot girls from high school. And taking turns sharing who'd they rather. Time and place, I guess. Strip clubs are also off the table, but the other guys sneak and go behind their wives' backs. I only know because they all thought I was young, hot, and cool in the beginning. That gained me the controlling title. It all led to him resenting me, because now he was missing out on all the single fun. He's told me he withholds intimacy from me as a punishment because he doesn't see his friends like he used to, which is in no way my fault. I'm good friends with one of the girlfriends, and she's told me that they don't really like to come around because all my husband wants to do is drink. One night when he was drunk, I asked him why he never fingered me anymore, and his response was, "It's just a hold F." After that, he said he felt awkward trying to have intimacy with me because he knew I'd just be thinking about that. So we went from twice a day every day to maybe once every couple of weeks. Oddly enough, I ended up pregnant. On my birthday last year, I started miscarrying. He had plans with his friends and didn't cancel. Instead, he let me drop them off at another's house. He kissed me goodbye and said, "Tell me what the doctors say." Fast forward 6 months, and none of his friends even knew I miscarried that day. That whole situation ate away at me for months, and I'd keep it to myself for the most part. But there were times I'd snap. I couldn't process the loss, but it also felt like I lost my husband that day too. He didn't choose me. He chose to watch football and get drunk. After a few months of the struggle, my parents came over to sort of mediate. And as soon as I started crying about the miscarriage and how he left me for his friends, he stood up over me and told me, "Steve, you're just looking for sympathy from them." Which my parents didn't respect that at all, but they chose not to intervene. Moving forward, we didn't move forward at all. Any advances I'd make towards him, he'd ignore. The most activity he was giving me was letting me give him handies. After many complaints, our schedule got busier to twice in 1 month. Yeah, I keep track. His brother and his wife had their baby we got pregnant at the same time with. And the day we met him, we came home, and after weeks of not touching me, he said, "Let's make a baby." And he started tracking my cycle, and intimacy became a bigger chore for him. He was forcing himself to have intimacy with me when I was ovulating because he thinks a baby will make me happy. So last night, he tried to make a move purely because I was ovulating, and this time, I denied him. I told him that I'm tired of him only wanting to have intimacy with me when I'm ovulating. His response was, "When do you think I'm supposed to want to have intimacy with you?" I responded back every day and left the room crying. Then today, while he was at work, he sent me the accidental message. When I asked him this evening why it's his goal to make me look so crazy to his friends, it turned into a big fight. Have I sabotaged my marriage? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You haven't sabotaged your marriage, he has. He sounds extremely immature, and like he's not actually ready to be in a committed relationship. You deserve to have a husband who respects you, and his behavior indicates that he doesn't. If the man can't even support you when you're going through a miscarriage, and instead prioritizes getting drunk with his friends, he's clearly demonstrating what's most important to him. You can do better, and you deserve better. If he's not willing to change and grow up, you might as well leave him instead of wasting your youth with a man who's making you miserable. Comment 2. Working with the information you've provided, I'd say if anything, he's the one who sabotaged the marriage. If I were you, I would not want to have a child with this man, for fear of him being a terrible father. The way he's behaved is childish. I'm so sorry you're in this situation. How much support do you have outside the relationship in case things go south from here? Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me through all this. So, after that accidental message, things took a turn I didn't expect. The next day, I decided to confront him about it. I was tired of feeling like the villain in my own marriage. I asked him straight up why he felt the need to make me look bad to his friends. He got defensive, of course, and it turned into another argument. He said he was just venting and didn't mean anything by it. But it didn't feel like just venting to me. It felt like a betrayal. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the times he had put his friends above me, all the times he had made me feel like I was the problem. I realized that I'd been trying so hard to make things work that I had lost sight of my own worth. I decided that I needed to take a step back and figure out what I really wanted. The next day, I called my best friend and told her everything. She was shocked and angry on my behalf. She reminded me that I deserved better than this, that I deserved to be with someone who respected me and valued me. It was a wake-up call. I realized that I had been settling for less than I deserved because I was afraid of being alone. That evening, I sat down with my husband and told him that I needed some space. I told him that I was tired of feeling like I was always the one trying to make things work, that I needed him to step up and show me that he cared. He didn't take it well. He accused me of giving up on our marriage, of not trying hard enough, but I stood my ground. I told him that I wasn't giving up, that I was just taking a step back to figure things out. The next few days were tough. We barely spoke to each other and the tension in the house was obvious. But I felt a sense of relief. For the first time in a long time, I was putting myself first. I started going for walks, spending time with friends, and focusing on my own well-being. It felt good to take care of myself, to do things that made me happy. On the third day, something unexpected happened. My husband came home from work and told me that he had been thinking about what I said. He admitted that he had been taking me for granted, that he had been putting his friends above me because he was afraid of losing them. He said that he realized now that he had been wrong, that he wanted to make things right. I was skeptical at first. I had heard him say things like this before, only to go back to his old ways. But there was something different in his eyes this time. He looked genuinely remorseful, like he had finally realized the impact of his actions. He asked if we could go to couples therapy, if we could work on our marriage together. I agreed, but I told him that it would take time for me to trust him again, that he would have to show me through his actions that he was serious about changing. Over the next few days, he made an effort to spend more time with me, to listen to me, and to show me that he cared. It wasn't perfect, and we still had a long way to go, but it was a start. I started to see glimpses of the man I fell in love with, the man who used to make me feel like I was the most important person in his life. As we started to rebuild our relationship, I couldn't help but think about our past. I remember the early days of our marriage when we were so in love and full of hope for the future. I thought about the miscarriage and how it had changed everything, how it had driven a wedge between us. I realized that we had both been grieving in our own ways, that we had both been hurting and didn't know how to support each other. I also thought about my own role in our problems. I had been so focused on trying to make things work that I had lost sight of my own needs. I had been afraid to stand up for myself, to demand the respect and love that I deserved. I realized that I needed to be more assertive, to communicate my needs and boundaries clearly. As we continued to work on our marriage, I started to see changes in my husband. He was more attentive, more present, and more willing to listen. He started to open up about his own fears and insecurities, about how he had been struggling with the pressure to be the perfect husband and friend. It was a revelation for both of us. We realized that we'd been holding on to unrealistic expectations, that we needed to be more honest and vulnerable with each other. One night, as we were talking about our future, he told me that he wanted to start fresh, to build a new foundation for our marriage. He said that he wanted to be the husband that I deserved, that he wanted to make me happy. It was a turning point for us. We decided to let go of the past and focus on building a better future together. We started going to couples therapy, and it was a game changer. We learned how to communicate better, how to support each other, and how to rebuild trust. It wasn't easy, and there were still moments of doubt and frustration, but we were committed to making it work. As we navigated this new chapter in our marriage, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. For the first time in a long time, I felt like we were on the same team, like we were working towards a common goal. It was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is always a chance for redemption, for healing, and for growth. Thank you for reading. Am I the idiot for breaking up with my boyfriend? After he tried to force me into a week-long fast, I'm unable to post screenshots on here, so I will just copy and paste what he texted me last night. To the greater degree you can rise above the passions of your flesh, the urges that your material self cries out for, the greater degree you will find yourself in contact with your higher self. Then a photo with a quote saying, "Hunger is the first element of self-discipline. If you can control what you eat and drink, you can control everything else." And then finally him saying, "Are you able to go without eating tonight?" This came out of nowhere. For context, I've been wanting to lose weight for a while. I have issues with eating disorder in the past, inconsistent eating, all rooted in body image issues. And I've asked him for his help with smaller portions if he was comfortable with that. He was so happy to help me, as he always wants to see me improve myself. He has helped me with my portions since I've asked. He does 100% of the cooking. Randomly last night, we noticed it was 9:30 p.m. and we hadn't eaten dinner yet. I asked him to make it, and then he sent me those texts. I got upset and said that's triggering for him to say because of my eating issues. I would understand if it was sent after we already ate dinner, but he sent it to me when the only thing I ate yesterday was lunch. I fell asleep after and didn't eat anything. This morning, I woke up to half-eaten dinner on the table, and he said he had dinner last night after I fell asleep. Is this concerning? Now for an update. Hey everyone. Thank you so much for all the great advice you all have given me. I'm grateful to have gotten some feedback on this situation. It was definitely an uncomfortable and intense one. For more context, my boyfriend and I have been dating for 3 years and living together for around 2 years. Our relationship is very healthy besides this, which is why I came to Reddit, because this was just so out of character for him. Also, we are both pretty spiritual, but the quotes he sent me were definitely out there for both of us. He did not write those quotes himself. He took them from a book he was reading at the time. After reading all your comments, I sat him down and talked to him about what happened. It really helped clear things up. First, he had no idea about my anorexia bulimia eating disorder. He thought I had the binge eating disorder, which I have struggled with as well, so it was just a miscommunication. He did know I have a weird relationship with food and issues with my weight, but he was truly only trying to help, as he had recently gotten into the idea of fasting. But when he learned that I did struggle with this type of eating disorder, he felt so terrible and apologized for sending those messages. He said he would have never sent them if he knew. He genuinely just wanted to open up a conversation about fasting, but did it in a bad way. As for the dinner part, he actually made dinner for the both of us, but I fell asleep. So he ate his portion and kept my portion for me to eat when I woke up for lunch the next day. It was just a lot of miscommunications, and I'm glad we were able to clear this up and deepen our relationship after. We did laugh at the comments saying they think he is a cult leader, though. He saw how those quotes could make him look like that LOL. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. To the greater degree you can rise above the passions of your flesh, the urges that your material self cries out for, the greater degree you will find yourself in contact with your higher self. That is one of the most pretentious, I love the smell of my own farts nonsense statements I've read on here. It strikes me as a guy who thinks he's way better and more enlightened than you, but don't worry. You can prove that you're on his level of supreme self-awareness by just not eating, apparently. Comment 2. Sounds like your boyfriend is on a power trip with his newfound self-improvement journey. Telling you not to eat dinner and sending those pretentious quotes is a red flag. It's manipulative and triggering given your history. Stand your ground and set clear boundaries. Your health and well-being come first. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the support and advice. A lot has happened since my last update, and I wanted to share what's been going on. After our conversation about the fasting texts, things seemed to settle down for a bit. My boyfriend was really understanding and promised to be more mindful about my eating issues. For a few days, everything felt back to normal. We even started planning a weekend getaway to a cabin in the woods, something we both were looking forward to. But then, something unexpected happened that changed everything. One evening, I came home from work to find my boyfriend sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by books and papers. He looked up at me with a serious expression and said he had something important to discuss. He had been reading more about fasting and spirituality and wanted to try a week-long fast together. He believed it would help us connect on a deeper level and improve our relationship. I was hesitant given my history with eating disorders, but he was so passionate about it that I reluctantly agreed to try it for a day or two. The first day was tough, but I managed to get through it with his support. However, by the second day, I was feeling weak and dizzy. I told him I couldn't continue, but he insisted that I push through, saying it was just my body adjusting. I didn't want to disappoint him, so I tried to keep going. By the third day, I was barely functioning. I was irritable, exhausted, and constantly thinking about food. My boyfriend, on the other hand, seemed to be thriving. He was energetic and focused, which only made me feel worse about my own struggle. On the fourth day, I made a mistake that changed everything. I was so hungry and desperate that I secretly ate a granola bar while he was in the shower. I thought I could hide it, but he found the wrapper in the trash and confronted me. He was furious, accusing me of not being committed to our relationship and spiritual growth. I tried to explain how difficult it was for me, but he wouldn't listen. He stormed out of the apartment, leaving me alone and in tears. The next few days were a blur. He didn't come home, and I had no idea where he was. I was worried sick, but also angry and hurt by his reaction. I reached out to his friends and family, but no one had seen or heard from him. It wasn't until a week later that he finally came back, looking disheveled and exhausted. He apologized for his behavior and said he needed time to think. He admitted that he had been too harsh and that he didn't fully understand the impact of fasting on my mental and physical health. We tried to move past it, but things were never the same. The trust between us was shattered, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still disappointed in me. Our conversations became strained, and we started arguing more frequently. The weekend getaway we had planned was canceled, and we spent most of our time avoiding each other. One night, I overheard him on the phone with a friend, talking about how he felt like he was failing in his spiritual journey because of me. It broke my heart to hear him say that, and I realized that our relationship was no longer healthy for either of us. I decided it was time to end things. even though it was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. We sat down and had a long, emotional conversation about our relationship. He admitted that he had been putting too much pressure on both of us, and that he needed to focus on his own growth without dragging me into it. We agreed to part ways and take some time to heal individually. It was a painful and tearful goodbye, but we both knew it was for the best. In the aftermath of our breakup, I've been reflecting on our relationship and my own struggles with food and body image. I realized that I need to prioritize my mental and physical health and not let anyone else's beliefs or practices dictate my well-being. I've started seeing a therapist again to work through my issues and find healthier ways to cope. As for my ex-boyfriend, I heard through mutual friends that he's still on his spiritual journey, but he's also seeking therapy to address his own issues. I hope he finds the peace and growth he's looking for, and I wish him the best. Looking back, I can see how our different approaches to spirituality and personal growth ultimately drove us apart. It's a harsh reality, but sometimes love isn't enough to overcome fundamental differences. I've learned a lot from this experience, and I'm determined to come out stronger and more self-aware. Thank you all for reading and for your support. Am I the idiot for suspecting my husband is cheating on me with my brother? From August 2023 to now, I've noticed what I suspect is my husband cheating on me with my brother. My brother met my husband around that time when we helped him move into his first house. My husband and I got eloped because of my parents disapproving of him. Financial reasons, I make more. And they didn't see my husband fit to marry me since I'm the provider. We've been together for 10 years, married for 6. My brother, to my knowledge, is straight. We were never too close because our interests just never aligned. I've noticed the following major things, but at the time, thought nothing of it because they're both men, and I just never suspected it. I never thought my husband would cheat on me, period, let alone with my brother. 1. My husband doesn't let me look at the messages between him and my brother. He asks me to text people using his phone for him all the time. But if my brother is texting, he's quick to take his phone and do it himself. 2. My brother's always coming over when I'm not home. I never minded at first because he and my husband are very close, but now I'm wondering if there's a reason why. The minute I come home, my brother is suddenly already packing up to leave. I've had a one-on-one talk in person with my brother for maybe 30 minutes within the past month. 3. Recently, March 2024. Now, my husband has been claiming overtime. When I asked about the overtime money, he got defensive and called me controlling for asking, and told me to stay out of his finances. 4. My husband never asks me about my day anymore. He's glued to his phone, and when I ask, he's texting my brother. 5. We don't have intimacy anymore. We haven't for 2 months now, and it's driving me up a wall. Whenever I try to initiate or do something sexy, he turns me down and avoids me. He never used to do this before. 6. They go to the gym together, and when my husband comes home, he talks about my brother's figure and form for a good 10 minutes to me while he showers. I at first thought he was just proud of my brother. He's very muscular and spends a lot of time in the gym now, due to my husband. Those key points have been pushing me to think that he's cheating. For the longest time, I was at most just annoyed with my husband. I've had close female friends, and I used to not be able to prioritize my time, so I thought it was just that. Things have really been escalating this past month, and I don't think my husband is being faithful anymore. This Saturday, my husband and I were supposed to go out on a date to rekindle. My idea, I pushed for it. But I don't think I want to go anymore. He's been moody ever since I brought it up in the first place. Am I overthinking this? I thought if my brother were a woman, then I'd probably be going ballistic. When I think about it that way, everything seems to fall into place. But what if I'm wrong? I don't want to blow something up if it's nothing. My husband has no gay history, and neither does my brother to the best of my knowledge. My husband has always been the super macho gym rat type, and my brother is, I guess, just average. Is this normal? How do I bring this up to my husband? Should I just put this all behind me and deal with it? We've been together for a decade, and I really love him. I don't want to throw everything away because I'm being insecure. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. There are a lot of closeted people in this world. You are not being insecure at all. Something isn't right. and you deserve to know what's happening so you can know what your next move should be. Comment 2. My first thought is that they are doing drugs together, including but not necessarily limited to steroids, lowered intimacy drive, missing overtime money, talking about muscles, secret texts. Now, for the update. Thanks for reading my last post. So, a lot has happened in the past week, and I really need to get this off my chest. Last Sunday, I decided to confront my husband about everything. I couldn't keep it bottled up anymore. I asked him straight up if there was something going on between him and my brother. He looked shocked and denied it, of course, but his reaction seemed off. He got really defensive, and instead of reassuring me, he turned the tables and accused me of being paranoid and controlling. It was a heated argument, and we both said things we probably shouldn't have. He stormed out of the house, saying he needed space to think. The next day, I decided to talk to my brother. I needed to hear his side of the story. When I asked him about his relationship with my husband, he seemed genuinely confused at first, but when I mentioned the specific things that had been bothering me, he got really quiet. He admitted that they had been spending a lot of time together, but he insisted that it was just because they had become good friends. He said he felt bad that we weren't as close as siblings should be, and that he was trying to bond with my husband to make up for it. I wanted to believe him, but something still didn't sit right with me. On Wednesday, I decided to do something I never thought I would do. I went through my husband's phone while he was in the shower. I know it was a breach of trust, but I felt like I had no other choice. What I found confirmed my worst fears. There were dozens of messages between him and my brother, and they weren't just friendly. They were talking about meeting up in secret, and there were even a few messages that were clearly flirtatious. My heart sank. I felt like my world was falling apart. I confronted my husband again that night, showing him the messages. He couldn't deny it anymore. He broke down and admitted that he had been having an affair with my brother. He said it started a few months ago, and that he didn't know how to tell me. He said he was confused about his feelings, and that he never meant to hurt me. I was devastated. I didn't know what to say or do. I just felt numb. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't eat or sleep. I felt like I was living in a nightmare. My husband tried to talk to me, but I couldn't even look at him. I felt so betrayed. I didn't know how to move forward. I decided to take a few days off work to clear my head. I needed to figure out what I wanted to do next. On Friday, I got a call from my mom. She said she had heard about what happened and wanted to talk. I was surprised because we hadn't been on the best terms since I married my husband, but I agreed to meet her. When we sat down to talk, she was surprisingly supportive. She said she had always had her doubts about my husband, but she never wanted to interfere in my life. She said she was sorry for not being there for me, and that she wanted to help me through this. It was a bittersweet moment. I was grateful for her support, but it also made me realize how much I had missed out on by not having a closer relationship with her. Over the weekend, I had a lot of time to think. I realized that I needed to make some tough decisions. I couldn't stay in a marriage where I felt betrayed and unloved, but I also didn't want to make any hasty decisions. I decided to talk to a therapist to help me sort through my feelings. I needed to figure out what was best for me. On Sunday, I had my first therapy session. It was hard to open up about everything, but it felt good to talk to someone who wasn't involved in the situation. The therapist helped me see that I needed to focus on my own well-being, and not just on trying to save my marriage. She also helped me realize that I needed to set boundaries with my husband and my brother. I couldn't let them continue to hurt me. As I was leaving the therapist's office, I got a text from my brother. He said he wanted to talk and apologize for everything. I wasn't sure if I was ready to face him, but I agreed to meet him the next day. When we met, he seemed genuinely remorseful. He said he never meant to hurt me, and that he was confused about his own feelings. He said he was going to seek therapy himself to figure things out. It was a difficult conversation, but it felt like a step towards healing. Looking back, I realized that there were so many signs that I ignored. I was so focused on trying to make my marriage work that I didn't see what was happening right in front of me. But now I know that I need to take care of myself first. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm determined to move forward and find happiness again. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.